Hello, welcome back. I'm here on the couch. I'm feeling it today. The sun is shining, the tank is clean.
The tank is clean. The tank is clean!
Today, once again, I apologize for my co-host's lack of attendance. She's so irresponsible, but she sends her vibes from across the pond. She's not in England. She hasn't been in England this whole time, but she is across the Atlantic. She's over there somewhere. I actually don't even know where she is right now, but I digress. Hi, I'm John. Hello. Usually Sierra's here. She's not here. She's gonna be back. I promise she'll be back. I know it doesn't seem like it because 2 weeks in a row you just got me, and I apologize, but I promise she'll be back. Just give her some time. She's out there. She's doing her thing. She's writing. She's studying. She's editing. She's also relaxing a little bit, but she'll be back. Anyway, it is like smack dab in the middle of June at this point. And June, as most of you know, is Pride Month. So I wanted to highlight, similar to how we do in Black History Month, some books that talk about queer stories, come from queer authors, things like that I've interacted with, that I would recommend, that I enjoyed. And these are my thoughts, okay? John. So if you disagree, that's fine. And I'd love your recommendations, but that's what we're gonna do today. As you know here, do we only read books that relate to the month that it is? No. Do we read Black stories outside of Black History Month? Yes. Do we read queer stories outside of Pride Month? Yes. Do we read AAPI stories outside of AAPI Month? Yes, and so on and so forth. So these are books that you can read now if you want to participate in Pride Month and like maybe make your reading a little bit more selective, but we also encourage you to read everything all the time. Expand your horizons outside of the month that the calendar has designated for them, right? Because it's really arbitrary when you think about it. They gave Black people the shortest month of the year. Every once in a while we get an extra day. Cool. And honestly, like a really good thing about this channel is that in preparation for videos and I sit down and talk to you guys, I get to go back and look at some of the books that I've interacted with that I maybe haven't forgotten about or just haven't really reflected on in a while. So I was sitting here like 5 minutes ago looking through some of the books and some of the things I wanted to talk about, and I was like, wow, I have good taste. No, but let's get into it. I'm not going to do this in any order. I just kind of have the books splayed out over here. But I'm going to talk about the first one that's a little like abstract because it's not. Let me just tell you. The first one I'm going to talk about is All of Us Strangers by Taichi Yamada. Now, if you know the book, you're like, John, that's not a queer story. I know. I brought this here because I want to talk about the movie which adapted this book and made it into a queer story with Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal. The book is originally written, I want to say in Japanese, and it was translated by Wayne P. Lammers. And it does not highlight a queer relationship. It's a hetero relationship, and it focuses a lot more on like the eerie, like Japanese mythology vibes, which is also really cool. If you watch the movie though, it does focus on a queer relationship, and there's a point in the movie where Andrew Scott goes back to his parents, and he's talking to his mom and his dad, oh my goodness, both crushing scenes, about him basically coming out to them and him being gay. And those two scenes, there's a conversation with his mom and there's a conversation with his dad, and both of them are devastating. I was watching them, tears, that whole movie, crying. I recommend it. Read your trigger warnings, but it is very good. I think it does a good job talking about identity and our main character's like struggles that he had growing up and kind of trying to reconcile that with his parents. But if you know the story, you know like what happened with his family, what happened with his parents, all that stuff. I'm not going to spoil it. Just know that it is very interesting. I wouldn't have known about this book without the movie, so I'm really happy that the movie came out. And obviously Andrew Scott, Paul Mescal do a great job. They do no wrong. Well, let me not say that. Just in case people get canceled out here, okay? Let me not be on the internet saying that like it's set in stone. But I would recommend reading the book. It wasn't my favorite, but it was interesting to see how you can take source material and adapt it and turn it into something different and beautiful, and keep both of them very valid and worthwhile. So that is All of Us Strangers by Taichi Yamada. It's originally called just Strangers, and then the movie is called All of Us Strangers, and then they made a book version with the title that reflects the movie. Does that make sense? I think that made sense. we're going to say it made sense. That's that one. That's book number one. I said I said it was abstract because I'm not really talking about the book. I'm more talking about the movie, but obviously the movie is based on the book. Next one I want to talk about is This is the Death of Vivek Oji by Akweke Amezi. This is a book that I want to say Sierra got for me in one of our like book buying challenges, the ones that I always fail. If you don't know, go back and watch some of those. I always buy Sierra the wrong books. That's like the trend now. I'm going to break that spell eventually, hopefully, maybe, but I always buy books that she doesn't really want to read, like a romance that she has no interest in reading, or it covers topics that she's not comfortable reading about. And it's like, good job, John, you know your friends. This is The Death of Vivek Oji. It is an African story about a trans person, and I would say that this is more focused on, I think when I described it the first time, I described it more as a cautionary tale to parents loving queer children, and how creating a fostering and safe environment can have wild effects on the development of that child, right? If your child feels safe to talk to you at home and express their identity and be themselves, that child is going to flourish so much more than in a household where they feel like their identity is hated, wrong, restricted. So our main character, Vivek Oji, they find solace in a lot of their friendships. This takes place in Nigeria. Akweke Emezi has a lot of books out there. I know I just finished another one called You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, which honestly, now that I finished the book and said that title out loud, it's hitting me why it's called that. So that's crazy. But that one focuses more on a heteronormative relationship, but at the same time, you get to highlight a queer author in Akweke Emezi, and I feel like that is another good way to kind of interact with Pride Month and highlight both queer stories and queer authors. So that is what we're doing now. The Death of Vivek Oji, it was really good. It was really sad. Again, trigger warnings. I actually had a conversation yesterday with somebody at the bar, and we kind of talked about the violence against people in the trans community. And they were kind of sharing with me their past history, their struggles. And this is just someone I struck up a conversation with. And we talked for like an hour. And it was really good to meet them. And I learned a lot, and we got to like share histories. If you know me, you know the way I like to learn about topics that are difficult or hard or challenging is to read or listen to stories of people that have been through them. So I was very fortunate to have that conversation, and that they were very open with me. Yeah. Ooh, I have some options here. Where do I want to go next? Okay, this one is going to be more lighthearted. This is like the one I wanted to include just to keep it chill. When you think of queer romance, this is kind of one of the books that comes straight to mind, at least that I've interacted with. This is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This one is kind of more low stakes. Well, maybe not low stakes, because it is like the son of the president and the Prince of England. So there is like geopolitical issues and things at stake. So maybe low stakes isn't the right word, but it is made up, right? This hasn't happened that we know of, but it's cute, it's funny. Oh my goodness, it's hilarious. And the movie was good too. So I watched the movie before I read this book. And they do a good job at kind of keeping it pretty much one for one. I heard talks about a sequel, which could be interesting. I don't think there's a sequel to the book, and if I'm wrong, let me know. But I think I would enjoy a sequel because it was fun to watch. So you have the first son of the United States, who is Alex Claremont Diaz, and then you have Henry, who is a prince of, I always want to say Prince of Egypt because of the movie, Prince of England, of the British Empire. It deals with, like, again, the relationship between kids and their parents, and talking about your identity with them and being open with them, which can be a really hard part of like queer identity. The conversation with your parents always seems to be the biggest and most difficult conversation, because you can feel like you're disappointing them, letting them down, that they won't accept you for who you are, even though they're supposed to like love you no matter what. So those conversations are always hard, and like it talks about it here in Red, White, and Royal Blue. It talks about it in the movie All of Us Strangers. So seeing those conversations depicted in words or in film is always really touching and heartbreaking sometimes. Red, White, and Royal Blue has a few of those moments, and it's fun. It's a good time. Yeah. Yeah. So Red, White, and Royal Blue, if you're looking for just a more chill queer romance that doesn't tackle like really heavy topics, I would say this is a good one for you. Okay, let me do this one now because this one is, I'm so gassy. I had a really good sandwich before this. Okay, this one is one of my favorite nonfiction that I've read recently. This is Close to the Knives, a memoir of disintegration by David Wojnarowicz. I think I said that right. It's been a while since I've looked up how to pronounce his name. David Wojnarowicz was born in the 1950s, died in the 1990s. He got to see firsthand a lot of the AIDS crisis in America and the struggle for queer rights and everything that happened kind of more back in the 90s compared to what we're dealing with now. So it gives like a different perspective out of our current time frame. In preparation for this video, I was reading through some of the things that I underlined when I was reading it the first time. And if you remember when I talked about it, there's a wrap up. I don't remember when. It was a while ago. But I was constantly knocked out of the park reading this and reading these stories and the things that he had to say and the way he reflected and how a lot of the things mirror things that we're dealing with right now. I'll let it speak for itself. So I have a few quotes. Bear with me. I swear I can read, I promise. But if I can't, you can make fun of me. I'll make fun of myself. So this was him talking about dealing with AIDS. He said, "The rest of my life is being unwound and seen through a frame of death. And my anger is more about this culture's refusal to deal with morality. My rage is really about the fact that when I was told that I'd contracted this virus, it didn't take me long to realize that I'd contracted a diseased society as well." So many, okay, well, it seemed like my neighbor was at my door. We've had these issues with my sprinkler system outside of my house. At some point last week, it got twisted to face my windows. So I woke up in the middle of the night with the sprinklers blasting my windows, and I was like, oh my goodness, we're getting raided. Call the police. It was like a work night, so I like rolled out of my bed, and I was like, what in the world is going on? I come to my window, turn on the outside light, and see that the sprinkler is pointed at my door. Pointed at my windows, and I was like, there's no grass here. There's no grass here. That needs to be the other way. But it was the middle of the night. I was barely clothed. I was not going to go outside and fix it at that time. I was also so tired. So I talked to my neighbor about it the other day, and I was like, yo, what's going on? And he was like, well, you might just need to like fix it. Hopefully it was on accident. I'm hoping it was like a lawn person that was working up in my like grass area, and they accidentally twisted it toward me. Anyway, it happened again last night. I got up and I said, I'm done with this. Enough is enough. I walked out there. I twisted it back to face the grass. So hopefully that solves that issue. But it was like, it goes on for maybe half an hour, and it's just going back and forth like, and it's facing me. So I came out, and my welcome mat was completely doused. It was waterlogged. My like plants got too much water. It just was not a vibe. So I fixed the issue, and hopefully we're good now. But the issue is sometimes, because when it was facing me, it gets into the neighbor's stuff and like it wets up their patio. But we talked about it. We know it's not my problem, not my fault. Anyway, what was I saying? And then a little bit down the line in the book, this is a thick paragraph, so bear with me. But it's a little too relevant to what we're dealing with today. So this says, less than half the people who are eligible to vote in this country even bother to do so. Tell me, what does that mean? Who does this benefit? And those who bother to vote base their decisions on little pictures that come through a box we call television. People trust their lives to a little man no bigger than 12 inches tall, who is transmitted from a satellite in outer space into the antenna of their TV screens. This man appears now and then to sell his image to those who go to the polling booths. Why on earth would any of us believe that this man who appears on TV is not dangerous? How on earth could we truly believe he would not do us harm once he is elected? Is it because he is only a maximum of 12 inches tall and we think we can handle him if he gets out of line? Maybe give him a little kick in the little butt if he proves to be a liar and a thief and a borderline fascist? What if the owners of TV stations and the owners of newspapers prevent that information from being shown, printed, talked about? I rarely watch TV anymore because I have a problem with believing the images that get pumped out of that little box in the corner of the room. Instead, I just look out my window and pretend it's the television set or the newspaper that I used to watch or read. No one can edit these images before I see them, so they tend to be more honest. If you want, you can replace television with phone, laptop, whatever, however we're getting information disseminated down to us. And it really does feel like that. Sometimes it feels removed from us, even when we're dealing with things in our own country. Like watching things on a phone, it does feel dystopian and it feels so far away, even though it is at home. So when he says, is it because he is only a maximum of 12 inches tall and we believe we can handle him if he gets out of line? Maybe give him a little kick in the little butt if he proves to be a liar and a thief and a borderline fascist. Enough said about that. That's Close to the Knives, David Wojnarowicz. Read it. It is very still relevant, even though it's talking about things that happened in like the 1900s, the 1960s, 70s, 80s, throughout David's life. Okay, we have 3 books left. I'm going to start with In Memoriam. So In Memoriam by Alice Wynne. This is a novel that takes place in World War I, and we are dealing with 2 British men joining the British Army, and they meet at school. So we have Elwood and Gaunt, that's their last names, and that's kind of how they refer to each other throughout the book. And they have this relationship without school, but then one of them leaves to join the forces kind of really quickly, and then the other one is like trying to catch up to him and get back to him. And it takes you through a lot. I'll just read the back. This says, it's 1914 and World War I is churning through young men on both sides of the fight. The front feels far away from Henry Gaunt, Sidney Elwood, and the rest of their classmates, safely enclosed in their idyllic boarding school in the English countryside. They are busy with Greek lessons, debate society, and playing witty pranks on one another. News of the heroic deaths of their friends only make the war more exciting. Meanwhile, Gaunt has become consumed by a private dilemma, an infatuation with his best friend, the glamorous, charming Elwood, without a clue that Elwood is pining for him in return. Gaunt enlists, relieved to escape his overwhelming feelings for Elwood, but to Gaunt's horror, Elwood rushes to join him at the front, and the rest of their classmates soon follow. Now, death surrounds them, often inches away, and no one knows who will be next. Something that's very interesting about this book is it has, at the start of a lot of chapters, like little clippings of newspapers, and it will kind of explain and honor the people that were killed in action and wounded in action. And the whole time you're reading the story, you're hoping not to see the names of characters you know. And that kind of reflects the feelings of people living in those times. They would see these papers and have to scour them constantly to see if their friends, relatives, loved ones were on these lists, and how they were doing in the war, where they were at, how they died. One of my friends who lives in New York was part of a book club, and they got to meet Alice Wynne. And he was like, you could have just flown up here. And people think you can just buy flights on a whim. Let me tell you. Sierra went to Paris, and the friend that went with her was like, yeah, just come to Paris. What do you mean? What do you mean? Just come to Paris? What do you mean? Speaking of Paris, this is a book that isn't on my list because I don't have it physically, but I didn't want to forget it. So I'm really happy that that came up. Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin is like a quintessential queer love story, takes place in Paris. I don't remember a lot of the details. Just know that James Baldwin's writing has never missed for me yet, and I don't think it ever will. That was the first book I read from him. Beautiful writing, beautiful descriptions of this relationship, and it is one of like the earlier queer love stories or queer relationships that we see in literature, and it comes from James Baldwin. So, like, enough said. I'm not going to talk about it too much. Go read it. I need to get my copy back. I don't exactly know where it is, but I'll get it. Mark my words. Okay, we got 2 left. So I lied when I said 3 because I forgot about Giovanni's Room, and that's on me. I take full responsibility of that. I'm sorry for lying to you. I try not to do that. This is Tin Man. Did I pick it up because it's shiny? Yes. Do I have it displayed on my bookshelf most times because it's shiny and the cover is beautiful? Also, yes. We have discovered, and we know this about me, I like shiny things. I can't help it. It's part of who I am. I was born this way, okay? So this is Tin Man by Sarah Winman. For me, it was a little reminiscent of My Policeman, which is another book and good movie. This is a story about 2, they start off as boys, like young 12-year-old boys, Ellis and Michael. They're living in England, I think in Oxford, and they like begin this beautiful friendship, but then the friendship becomes something more. But then we kind of jump in time to the future where one of them is married, and you're trying to fill the gaps of everything that happened in between, right? Like, how did we go from here to here where you guys are so close, and now you're living completely different lives, and you've been out of each other's lives. What happened in the meantime? I usually enjoy stories like that, where you start in the past and then you kind of have this time jump and you're filling in the gaps. The final book. This is Isaac's Song by Daniel Black. And now I know people in the comments have told me that Isaac's Song is kind of like, maybe not a continuation, but it is kind of in conversation with another book by Daniel Black called Don't Cry For Me, which I still need to read. I got this one from Book of the Month. I read it. I loved it. We follow Isaac, who is a young black boy who grows up realizing he's queer, and he is now an adult, meeting with his therapist, talking about his relationship with his father and the effects that had on him. And he's kind of reconciling the fact that he has all this pent up anger with his dad, who has recently passed, and realizing that he's maybe blamed his father for a lot of his hurt, when maybe there was a lack of understanding there. Okay, so one of the problems with me rambling is that usually our camera will record for about around 25 minutes, right? Which is fine. That works. Sierra and I know. We usually set a timer, and then we know how to like talk for about that time, and then take a break, give our camera time to recharge, pause, breathe. I didn't do that because I was rambling, and I do that now because Sierra's not here. So I know it cut out, but I think I got through most of, or some of, Isaac's Song. And I had things bookmarked, and I've taken the bookmarks out because I talked about the things I was going to talk about. We find Isaac as an adult, and he's going to therapy, and his therapist and him are talking about his relationship with his father, and how his father kind of denied his queer identity for most of his life and pushed back against it, whether it was in sports, the way he talks, the way he acted, the way he interacted with people, and made it really hard for Isaac to be himself. So because of that, Isaac, throughout his life, built up a lot of resentment toward his father, and now that his father has passed, he is talking to his therapist about all of these things in his life that he has kind of blamed on his father, and his therapist is trying to help him reflect on whether or not the blame is placed in the right place. Does that make sense? So their recommendation to Isaac is to write down his story, and see if at the end of his story he still blames his father for all the things he's currently blaming his father for. So it talks about being black and queer in the 1980s and growing up in a black household and struggling with your identity and struggling with your parents and whether or not they love you, whether or not they support you. But it also talks about the beauty of writing things down, the beauty of putting your thoughts to words. Kind of the end of the book, Daniel Black is reflecting on the importance of language and putting your thoughts to words, and the fact that it is an art form, and it really does help you, and it can help you process emotions that you're struggling with, dealing with in your brain. So this says, something about language makes a thing real. It makes thoughts tangible. You can lie to your thoughts, and they'll lie back to you until you write them down. Then, before scrutinizing eyes, they won't lie any longer. And I think that personally is very true. I had a really wise friend back in the day, and anytime I brought my problems to him, he would listen to me and hear me out and offer whatever advice he had. And then at the end of the conversation, he would say, have you journaled about this? And I'd be like, first of all, I didn't come to you to journal about this. I came because I wanted to vent. I wanted to verbally process, which isn't always the best way to deal with emotions or things you're struggling with. So after he said that, I'd go home, I'd take out my little journal, and I'd write things down. And then it always helped me with my feelings and my emotions. It helped me see what I truly thought about whatever I was going through, how other people made me feel, how I might have made other people feel in my responses and my reactions. And this really helped to center me on whatever it was I was going through. So I know for me, journaling and writing things down can be really helpful. And I struggle with perfection. Even when I'm writing things in my journal, I feel like I'm writing as if someone's going to read it one day, which isn't the case. It's your journal, but that's a me thing. But I would highly recommend, if you're into journaling, great, love that, support that. If it's not for you, that's fine too. Sometimes verbally processing it is the way people really get through things, because putting it into words with somebody else, with like a sounding board, helps them figure things out. But I digress. That's Isaac's Song. I apologize to my camera for overworking you. I'm sorry that you cut out on me, but that's your right, and I know you do that. So that's on me. I know you better than that, and I'll work on that. Those are the kind of like the books from my shelf that when I was kind of scanning, I realized I wanted to talk about and reflect on a little bit more for me personally. So this was good for me and hopefully for you. Hopefully you got some good recommendations out of it, and I will take all your recommendations in the comments. I almost said in the chat, we're not live. Let me know books that you're either reading right now or have read in the past that you would recommend. I know I already have a ton on my list. I need to get to them, but I almost went to Barnes & Noble the other week to buy a book specifically for Pride Month, and then I realized I have books on my shelf. I need to read some books on my shelf, and like I said at the beginning of this video, we read books on all communities all year round, right? Thank you much. Thank you much. Thank you much. Thank you so much for watching. We will catch you in the next one. Sierra won't be back in the next one. I'm just gonna tell you right now, flat out, straight up. I'm gonna be completely honest. She won't be back. She won't be back yet, but hopefully in the one after that, she should be back. And you won't have to deal with me rambling. I tried to focus a little bit more. Hopefully this one isn't 45 minutes. But I'll catch you in the next one. Like and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram at _and they were readers. Again, I said this last week. Everybody in our community, we love you. We appreciate you being here and you being who you are. And hopefully you feel safe and seen here. Yeah, go out and see if anything in your community is going on for Pride Month. I know different cities have more Pride events happening at different times of the year. So do some research, see what you can do in your city to interact with people and get involved in the community. So go out, spread love, nothing but love, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.